Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting round of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are you all doing today? I hope you are doing fine, especially after this wonderful weekend. I know I most certainly have, especially when around my region we had a bit of a, well, national holiday. Well, I don't know, national, but more provincial holiday, but whatever. I definitely had a great weekend. I hope you also had a great weekend as well. However, I could not say the same about today because I'm just warning you right now that when it comes to the weather in my area right now, if you are watching this through stream, it's just that it is very, very cloudy out there to the point that the sky is a bit angry and I keep hearing thunder. So don't be surprised if this ends up cutting a bit of the stream where things might get a little bit glitchy. Like if you see suddenly my stream stops, well then that is because I'm just dealing with bad weather. So I'm just warning you right now in case things don't really flow as naturally as they do. Then again, it seems to be common that sometimes I would have those like glitched out moments on the stream. So, I mean, like, what is considered normal around here? Am I right? All right. But anyways, before we go and do begin, thank you, Meta Ralph, for the subscription right there. But as I was saying, before we go and do begin, I do have one more charity highlight that I would like to do, considering that we are in the final Monday, or as I am recording this, the final week of June, or Pride Month, as you will. So for this one, I decided to go and highlight a real big one. So for my Pride Month charity highlight this time, it is going to be the American Civil Liberties Union, or as you may know as ACLU. Now, when it comes to this group, much like the Human Rights Campaign that I talked about last week, this is one of the biggest organizations or nonprofit organizations in America that specializes in human rights. And they don't just look into LGBTQ plus issues, including trans people. They actually highlight a whole lot of them that they go and try to make sure that their rights are still maintained. And they actually do have a little list over here on their website in which they specialize in capital punishment, civil liberties, criminal law reform, disability rights, free speech, HIV, human rights, immigrants' rights, juvenile justice, LGBTQ plus rights, national security, prisoners' rights, privacy and technology, racial justice, religious liberty, reproductive freedom, smart justice, voting rights, and women's rights. All of which they fight hard to ensure that Americans, no matter who they are or no matter where they come from, they all have equal rights, that they have the freedom, or that they maintain what people view, or like what people positively view as America, that they are one of the groups that try to do their best to maintain the freedom that is written within the Constitution of the United States. In fact, there have been several lawsuits that they would go and enact that fight against human rights, and there are many of them that they do legitimately win, in which they go and highlight to the judges that whatever laws or whatever bills that would oppose trans rights or abortion laws or anything like that, or even gender affirmative care, LGBTQ plus rights, women's rights, or whatever, it would go to the ACLU's favor to highlight that, yeah, like hate speech and going against human rights is unconstitutional. So if you would like to go and donate and help out the ACLU, then all you have to do is go to aclu.org. So just thought I would go and give a little shout out to them. All right, so with that said and done, though, it is now time that we are going to go and begin this, and I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Castle? Let me hear it, folks. Are you prepared now? Let's see. Oh, someone says, can I get a late happy birthday, Matt? Turn the big 21. Oh, well, happy birthday, Emmy. All right, and I see many people are ready. People are prepared. And with that said and done, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first story that I have for you today, we actually have a trailer for a new season for a show. But with this one in particular, this really does stand out because this was related to one of the biggest controversies in animation this year, specifically with what happened to Justin Roiland. Now that he is officially fired from Adult Swim and Hulu and stuff like that, what are they going to do with the characters that he voiced? Because we know that he barely did anything when it comes to the creative aspect and the writing and stuff like that, so what are his characters going to sound like now? Well, we do have one answer, and that is specifically regarding Solar Opposites, to which they have released a brand new trailer for Season 4 to go and answer the question of what is his character, aka Korvo, is going to sound like. So with that said, let's go ahead and check out the trailer for Season 4 of Solar Opposites.
Guys, check it out!
And that is Solar Opposites Season 4, to which they are going to begin on August 14th on Hulu. And the big thing to go and highlight in all this, yes, you notice that the character Korvo sounds way different than he did before. Well, that was because, well, as I stated before, that used to be Justin Roiland's character. But now he is given a brand new voice, a brand new British voice, to which now he is going, he will be played by Dan Stevens, who you may know him as a prominent actor in Downton Abbey, or specifically, like one thing you probably do know him well is actually playing the Beast in the 2017 live action remake of Beauty and the Beast. Now, one thing that I would like to go and emphasize is that I haven't fully watched Solar Opposites. I will confess to that. It's not like I've avoided it or anything like that. It's not like I'm completely blind to it. Like, I have seen some clips, and I will admit that they can legit be funny, and I can understand how this show is actually pretty successful to the point where, like I said, now they're up to their 4th season. So yeah, like, honestly, I have yet to, like, fully check them out myself, but from the stuff that I have seen, they can definitely be pretty good. Like, I know it's not the taste of everyone's, but still, though, I've been entertained from what I have seen. And when it comes to this one, like, this trailer in particular, already, I gotta say, like, maybe it's a bit unfair for me to say, but this is already one of my favorite Solar Opposites moments. Like, this is actually great, and honestly, I love how they handle the situation. They presented it beautifully. I would even say masterfully. Because the big thing about it, what I love especially, is the fact that they showed that they just don't care about context. They don't care about keeping continuity or whatever. Like, they don't pretend to try to say that, like, oh, nothing happened, everything's fine, everything's back to normal. And especially with the way that they didn't even bother finding someone who sounds like Justin Roiland. Like, they want to do everything they can. What I want to say is, they didn't try to go and do everything they can to try to hide from the situation. Like, they know that everyone knows about the whole Justin Roiland controversy and that his career in animation is like almost, if not practically dead. So in that regard, what would they do? And they pretty much addressed this hilariously where they're like, yeah, we're replacing his voice. We don't care if it sounds different. Shut up and deal with it. Like, almost like in like this, like, I wouldn't say mean-spirited, but it's like in a sense, it just really doesn't care. And they're just saying, yeah, this is the new thing now. This is how he's going to sound forever, even in flashbacks. That's what it is. Get over it. And honestly, you probably even have heard me throughout this entire thing where like, even I was just laughing throughout the whole thing of just like the full on don't care attitude and just saying, screw the haters. Like, yeah, this is how I sound. Like, so what? What are you going to do about it? I don't care. That's just how it is. That's what the voice machine did to my voice. All right? Now it's your problem, not ours. Like just that whole thing. And especially even changing it up to now he sounds British and like you see the different reactions. That I gotta say is just beautiful. And by the way, if you do want to have a bit of an idea of what Korvo sounded like before, I do have the trailer from the last season. It'll give you a bit of an idea.
Ah! What's happening? We just hit a major milestone. Solar opposites are back for season 3.
Like you can hear that it definitely is Justin Roiland and that it is like a less gravelly Rick Sanchez voice. But in here, like if you listen to this again, like it's nothing like what you have heard like in that trailer. Like this time
Around here. We're going to be late to work. Stop buggering about.
like that is just great. Like not like they know what it is. They just didn't hide it. And by the way, I would like to address that I am aware that this is not the first time that we have seen this happen. And I mean, we have seen voice actors come and go, and often voice actors would end up being replaced because they would turn out to be very problematic. This isn't the first time that it happened, and it certainly won't be the last time that this occurred. But in this regard, it's funny how like they're not pretending and they're just really straight to the point, straight to the facts, and just like, you got this hilarious result that honestly, I wish we could see more of that. I want to see more animated projects do this, that whenever they would go and replace voice actors, instead of trying to hide from the situation and like bring in sound-alikes and stuff like that, like they should really address it where make the character unapologetically sound different. That's the word that I want to look for before. That's the thing. That's what I love about this trailer. It's just the fact that it's just so unapologetic of replacing Justin Roiland. So, and I do want to see more of that. I want to see like how they would go and like get a brand new voice, sound totally different, and just tell the audience to freaking deal with it. Like, imagine how great it would be if The Secret Life of Pets 2 did that, where like we know back in the original, like it was voiced by Louis C.K., and then suddenly you go into the second one and now he sounds like Patton Oswalt. And I'll say right now that honestly, I didn't really like the second movie too much. It wasn't really that great. It was just like, your standard Illumination film. It was all right. But I will say I did enjoy Patton Oswalt's performance. Like he definitely did great as Max. But I do believe the main character is Max. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen Secret Life of Pets 2. But honestly, how much better would that movie be if they would start off by addressing that Max's voice is somehow different, that like he was choking on a bone and then suddenly he just sound, or no, better yet, like for some reason a rat entered into his mouth, he was choking, and then suddenly he has the voice of Patton Oswalt. How great would that be? How much better would that improve the quality of Secret Life of Pets 2 to just address that he's no longer Louis C.K. and now sounds like Remy from Ratatouille? That would have been so wonderful. Or another great example is Broly from Dragon Ball Z, or like the English dub. Like, I know, like, maybe they can't really have as much liberties to do so because, like, it is a dub. They got to translate it from the Japanese and stuff like that. But how hilarious would that be when, like, Broly would suddenly get his new voice and it's like, and also, like, pretty much poking fun at the controversies of Vic Mignogna, like, oh, my voice change.
And yet I feel more focus. I no longer feel the urge to prey on women and children. I'm more powerful than ever.
Like, honestly, I want to see more of those. I want to see more voice replacements do that, where they would just be unapologetic in confronting the controversy, just like this. Honestly, I think, like, with Solar Opposites, I don't know how they're gonna continue forward. I don't know if like the show itself, in terms of like engageability, or if people are gonna keep watching it. Like, will they, will it continue to sustain even without Justin Roiland? I don't know, but honestly, I will say they're definitely off to a great start with this new chapter, and especially getting with Dan Stevens. I mean, say what you will with his performance as the Beast in the live action remake of Beauty and the Beast. He's still like a very solid actor, and I can imagine that, like, already with his performance here, it's definitely a lot of fun, and just like, so, well, I wouldn't say narcissistic, but again, like, just, like, very pessimistic, and just, or very much of a nihilicist and very unapologetic about it. It's like, yeah, it's my voice, it's science, that's what did it, shut up, that's how it's going to be, get used to it. Just wonderful all around. So overall, in this case, I definitely do support the new change that they have done. And honestly, I'm on the side that, yeah, this is how you do it. Honestly, I like this new voice, and honestly, this might sound crazy. I would be down if they would also do that for Rick and Morty. Like, suddenly get new voices for Rick and Morty that sound nothing like what Justin Roiland did, and just go nuts with it. Honestly, I would be down to watch that as well. But yeah, so are things gonna get better now with Dan Stevens being a new voice, or the new prominent voice in Solar Opposites? Well, I guess we will have to wait and see when the show, or when the new season, will be coming out on August 14th on Hulu. So with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall over here, and I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about the new voice of Korvo in Solar Opposites, or what do you think about this new trailer? And especially, if you are a fan of Solar Opposites, I would love to know your opinions on this. Let's see now. I've never seen an episode of Solar Opposites, but if the rest of the show is anything like this, I'm missing out. The opening was absolutely hilarious. I love cynical meta humor like this, and I wish other shows would address voice actor changes like this. Aladdin's Genie would be a goldmine for these sort of jokes, both in animation and live action. Yeah, oh, and that's another, yeah, honestly, you described it way better than I did. Honestly, like, I keep forgetting words, like, for this story, but yes, this is full-on cynical meta humor, and this is debatably cynical meta humor at its best. Like, really and just in a way addressing the problem without full-on addressing the problem. Because I will say this, like, when it comes to Justin Roiland's controversy, yeah, I know that technically his domestic abuse charges were dropped, but from what has been revealed about how he is at work, and that he practically does nothing in terms of the writing, in terms of the show running, or in terms of the producing, and pretty much only does voice acting at home, he's pretty much dead weight. And especially with how his attitude has been revealed to be a selfish douchebag. And yes, being a selfish douchebag is enough of a reason to cancel someone and to go and take away their entire livelihood. That is a valid reason, because if you're not going to be a team player, if you're not going to be nice to others, then why should others be nice to you? Just because the stuff you make is entertaining, that doesn't excuse your behavior. Let's see what we got here. I didn't get into Solar Opposites, so I can't talk too much about how the season looks, but the way they worked around the recast is actually pretty clever and funny. It does make me wonder how this is going to go down in Rick and Morty. Is Rick going to be played by Ian McKellen? Is Morty going to be played by Morgan Freeman? Is Mr. Poopy Butthole going to be played by Mel Streep? I don't care if they explain it, just go balls to the wall with it. Exactly. Like, honestly, that's the best direction that you can go. And especially with these types of shows like Solar Opposites and Rick and Morty that heavily go into sci-fi and heavily go into the, like, into the shock factor or into the bizarre or into the like, you know, kind of like out of nowhere type comedy. Like, honestly, the less you make it sound like the original actors, like the better and more effective it's going to be for the kind of reactions that people would go and get. Or hell, like, you know what would be an interesting casting? I'll just say right now, get Danny Trejo to play Rick Sanchez. Imagine that combination. I could see that work. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but why not just get Danny Trejo to go play as Rick? And as for Morty, I don't know, like, I'm just picking names here. Hank Azaria, who knows? Like, maybe he'll add his like Simpson-like characters onto him, or even like in that regard, also like put in Dan Castellaneta, see how he would do as Morty. Who the fridge knows? Let's see what else we got here. I'll go with this one. Personally, while I haven't watched Solar Opposites myself, I am at least glad that Hulu decided to take care of the situation and get rid of Justin Roiland. And I gotta say that the way they handled the situation is hilarious, and even Dan Stevens does a good job. So overall, this definitely looks like a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely, I do agree. I wonder if there are people who have seen Solar Opposites in the chat wall, because I've seen a flood of comments that are like, well, I mean, I haven't seen Solar Opposites, but nah, don't worry, I'm not criticizing you guys. I'm just it's just a curious thought. Anyways, I haven't seen any episode of Solar Opposites, but it is a nice way to address the issue of replacing Justin Roiland with Dan Stevens for the main character. This doesn't mean I'll be interested in checking Solar Opposites, but as long as they unapologetically address the issue, this should be fine. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, yeah, and that would be another thing that I don't know if it would really work out in terms of getting new viewers, but I guess it'll depend if like the season itself can actually speak if it really is worth watching, if this new Solar Opposites now starring Dan Stevens is actually going to be worthwhile for audiences to go and watch. And who knows, maybe it's actually going to improve some things onto the series. Like, again, only the future can tell. Let's see now. I haven't seen Solar Opposites myself since I haven't been interested in the show. Still, this is a pretty fun way to change the voice from Justin to Dan. If you want another fun example, there was an episode of Gumball where at the end, Gumball and Darwin say they would never be replaced, only for them to glitch and get their new voices. Yeah, that's another really funny one. But to be fair, in the case of Gumball, it's more the case, it's nothing against the actors, it's not the actors' fault, it's just to maintain the kid-like voices among them. And I mean, if you're going to be working with kids, then you have to work quick because puberty is inevitably going to step in. Because I remember during production of Pixar's Coco, they did state that they have to make sure they got all the necessary recordings for the voice of Miguel, because the kid, I forgot his voice. I think it was Anthony Gonzalez or something like that. I don't know. I could be wrong. Chat wall, you could go and correct me on that. But I remember his voice, like, they were at the end of his childhood and he was about to go and enter puberty and his voice was really going to change. Like, even during the premiere, like, you can hear that he sounded nothing like how he did in the movie. So that was so that was an interesting thing. But yeah, like, in the case of Gumball, it was nothing against the kids. It's just, you know, puberty can be a pain to work with, so they got to get new actors. Let's see. Do we have any other comments to check? That reminds me of two things. One, a web series called Ed's World also did the same thing to one of the characters, Ed Gould. He too had a voice change Ray due to the passing of his voice actor creator in 2012. And two, the UK-US dub of several media like Jet Vac in one commercial of the Skylander Giants, the albino pirate from Pirates Band of Misfits, and almost every Mr. Men character like in the Mr. Men show in 2008. Despite the changes, I'll take a peek when those seasons get released. All right. Let's see. Do we have... I'll read one more comment before we go on our first break, actually. Even if I've never seen a single episode of Solar Opposites, how they address the new voice change is hilarious. I like the don't care attitude of the trailer, and I hope that the people who are working on Rick and Morty can do the same thing, especially with the sci-fi genre. So if you are curious to see how Dan Stevens is going to perform as Korvo in Solar Opposites, then keep in mind that season 4 is going to be coming out on August 14th on Hulu. So we're going to go on to our first break, and I'm just going to give you a warning right now, because the next story that we're about to get into, we're going to be dealing with some major controversies, but sadly, it's going to be a serious controversy over a movie that everybody is loving right now. Welcome back. And for our next story, I just want to issue an apology right now, because our next story that we have, honestly, not many people are going to like to hear what I am about to say and what has been revealed about a movie that right now is highly beloved. In fact, I would even say that it's one of the most highly praised movies of 2023 so far. And even I myself, I love this movie. I put out my review a few weeks ago. I adored it. Already I'm considering it one of the best animated films of the year. But then this story came out, and it definitely is a shocker. And I do feel like it's something that I know many of you, even myself, don't want to talk about, but it absolutely needs to talk about. And by the way, I just want to go and state this right now, and I will be repeating this, that I am not taking away the people's love for this movie. I'm not telling you to go and boycott this movie. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't love the movie anymore. If you still love it, go ahead, still love it. But this issue needs to be addressed. This unfortunate reality has to be seen and needs to be talked about for the benefit of the future so that less of this can actually happen. So with that said, let us go and discuss about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, so far, like I said before, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is one of the biggest hits of 2023. Even not too long ago, it has officially crossed the $500 million mark in the global box office, and not to mention all the massive praise that it has been getting from critics and audiences. However, a lot has changed when this article from Vulture came in. This article specifically is called Spider-Verse Artists Say Working on the Sequel Was Death by 1,000 Paper Cuts, written by Chris Lee. And to go and quickly summarize what this article is all about is that this article discusses about how there are 4 animators who stepped in and they wish to be anonymous on the factor, but they have actually worked on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and they talked about how much of a nightmare it was when working on the feature, where the production was actually filled with massive chaos. In fact, you probably may have remembered that originally Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was supposed to be released in April of 2022, but then Sony decided to go and delay that to October of 2022, and they stated that it was because of pandemic-related issues for the big delay. But then there was another major delay that happened from October of 2022 to June of 2023. And that's where things start to get a little bit suspicious. Like, hold on, what's up? What's going on? Because these delays aren't necessarily normal, because now Spider-Verse has been delayed by over a year. And a lot of people have been very accepting. They were like, okay, give them time to make sure that this movie does work. But what they actually don't know is that it's not necessarily pandemic-related issues that cause all the delays. It's because of the nightmarish production that it went, where it was just way too chaotic. And the big reason as to why it was so chaotic is because of the toxic work ethic of 2 of the most highly acclaimed names that are attached to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. In fact, these are the 2 people that are mostly credited for the creation of the Spider-Verse movies: Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Now, I know this may seem like a massive shock, like, what the frick did Phil Lord and Chris Miller do? I mean, they're some of the most celebrated names in animation and in cinema right now. Why would they be considered the villains of this entire scenario? What did they do that caused the production to become toxic? Well, I will tell you why. Now, in this article here, they would describe that when it comes to Phil Lord specifically, he has a very unique way when it comes to developing animated movies. And by the way, I just want to go and make another clarification right now that this mainly highlights the work ethic of Phil Lord and Chris Miller during their movies, because while it primarily highlights Spider-Verse, apparently this also happened in their other features as well. Like they did the same thing for the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs films, they did the same thing for the Lego movies, and they did the same thing with Mitchell's vs. the Machines. There is no confirmation if they have also done the same thing on the live action productions that they have directed, written, and produced, or if the same can be said about the TV shows that they have worked on, including the new season of Clone High right now. So this is only primarily focusing on how they would go and handle animated features. Now, with that said, I would like to go and discuss about how animated films are usually made. Now, you probably know that during the pre-production, that is one of the most important components to make sure that they have a proper story and that they know how the movie is going to look like through storyboards and animatics. That is the place where the writers, the editors, and the story artists all collaborate to go and build the foundation of the movie. Not necessarily the whole movie itself, but just the core of it, the foundation, that whatever changes that they would have to go and do, especially in terms of the writing, in terms of the narrative and stuff like that, it would be right there and only there. And for the stuff that they know works, that they know they say, okay, this will be in the movie no matter what, they will go and push that onto the production, where now the team would go and fully animate that and put it onto the final film. And it is important that for that step in particular, to keep it in the storyboards and the animatic stage so that they don't go and fully waste their time and fully waste their resources afterwards. Like that is an important thing to save money onto the budget and to go and save the well-being of the animators so that they don't overwork for nothing, you know? Like they would go and end up working on a scene and then suddenly, oh, well, that scene is no longer needed, you know? They don't have to go and do that, you know? That's why you would have the storyboards and the animatic, because it's right then and there where you do have an idea of like the story and the cinematography without too much of a consequence if you would go and do the change. This is not how Phil Lord works. For some reason, animatics and storyboards is completely foreign to him. He doesn't see how the movie is going to be. So what he does is that he demands that no matter what they have written, no matter what is storyboarded, that they would go and fully animate, that they would go and fully develop on that. And let me tell you exactly the biggest consequence of Phil Lord's actions onto it. There's actually one section that actually highlighted that very well in this article. Let me go and try to find that. Yeah, it's right over here. So let me just read you from my source on Variety. It states that for animated movies, the majority of the trial and error process happens during the writing and storyboarding, not with fully completed animation. Phil's mentality was, this change makes for a better movie, so why aren't we doing it? It's obviously been very expensive having to redo the same shot several times over and have every department touch it so many times. The changes in the writing would go through storyboarding, then it gets to layout, the animation, then final layout, which is adjusting cameras and placement of things in the environment. Then there's cloth and hair effects, which have to repeatedly be redone anytime there's an animation change. The effects department also passes over the characters with ink lines and does all the crazy stuff like explosions, smoke, and water. And they work closely with lighting and compositing on all the colors and visual treatments in this movie. Every pass is plugged into editing. Smaller changes tend to start with animation, and big story changes can involve more departments like visual development, modeling, rigging, and texture painting. There are a lot of artists affected by one change. Imagine an endless stream of them. And this is something that Phil Lord would keep on making their animators do again and again and again, where they would go and fully develop a movie, where they would fully develop a scene, where they would show, where they would go and fully work everything. And then suddenly at that point, that's when Phil would watch the movie and would be like, nah, I don't like that. Let's go and scrap that all together. The amount of hours, the amount of days that have been worked on one particular scene is suddenly just entirely gone, entirely destroyed, just thrown out to the garbage, just like that. And it's because of that kind of mentality and that kind of work ethic, it pretty much led to a chain of events where the animators had no choice but to really overwork themselves, where the average time to work on Spider-Verse is actually 11 hours a day, about for 7 days a week, and on average, like weekly, they would be working 70 hours, which is absolutely ridiculous. And on top of that, if they would legitimately get paid overtime, that's debatable. But overtime, it's been a repeated thing that has been going on. And on top of that, with the amount of revisions that Phil Lord would constantly go and demand, there was actually at one point that he would delay the entire production. And that's also another major problem with Phil Lord, is just the fact that he cannot stick with one idea. His mind would just continuously go all over the place, where whatever idea he would have last month, then this month he would go and completely change that altogether. And there was at one point in 2021 where there was one serious delay because Phil Lord wanted to really change some things in terms of the flow of the movie, in terms of the story of Spider-Verse, that there was legit 3 to 6 months that the animators could do nothing. Like, they were just sitting there idle, and Sony Pictures was legitimately paying animators at Sony Animation or at Sony Imageworks to literally do nothing. They just sit there, can't do much, because Phil Lord has to go and try to change up some stuff in the story, which of course Phil Lord did get in some serious trouble with Sony Pictures and did cause some fights. So that's honestly the massive, ridiculous thing that has been going on with Phil Lord, and the kind of toxic environment that he really did develop. And by the way, I forgot to go and mention that with that massive delay, it really did worry the animators, because eventually, like, they would end up really falling behind in their schedule. And the only way they could go and catch up is to really overwork themselves, where unfortunately burnouts have become extremely common, and there are plenty of people who could not take the heat of that of the production. In fact, even though Across the Spider-Verse really took pride in the fact that around 1,000 animators, or over 1,000 animators, worked on this feature film, 100 animators and 100 artists have actually stated that they quit. They had to bail out from it because they really could not handle the pressure. And I will go into later as to those who have stayed, and for the very unfortunate reasons as to why. But yeah, like, things could get so intense that there have been, like, tons of people in the 3-digit marks to which they had to bail out. They had to full on quit altogether. Now, and I just want to quickly mention, yes, in this article, they did state that the same can be said onto some of the other productions that they have done. Like, it's, again, not just with the Spider-Verse movies, but it happened in Mitchell's, it happened with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and it happened in the Lego movie. In fact, in here, they actually stated, in regards to the Lego movie, where apparently they were about 80% complete, and then suddenly, it's actually right here, to which they state Phil and Chris have a reputation. As producers, they used to come onto a project where it was 80% finished. Once they could ingest the movie properly and see what it's going to be like, they would come through with the guillotine and start enthusiastically editing. They'd come in and start rewrite lines, throw out entire sequences, throw out animations all over the place, everywhere. And this is animation that people have been working on for a long time. Finished work, not some mock-up thing. I heard on Mitchell's they did that, on Spider-Verse 1 they did that, Lego the same thing. Now, you might be wondering though, even though that's what Phil Lord has done, what about his buddy Chris Miller? Would the same thing be said to him? Honestly, no. In fact, they barely had anything to say about Chris Miller, because of the fact that he barely was there in the first place. And that was the biggest criticism that they would go and give to Chris Miller specifically, is that throughout the grand majority of the production, he was missing in action. He was just not there. It was just Phil Lord who had the power to go and like really screw things up with the entire production. And his friend was somehow just almost non-existent. Now, I am not going to say that Chris Miller did absolutely nothing in the production. That is a flat out lie. But yeah, his contribution was pretty minimal. In fact, they actually stated that when it comes to Across the Spider-Verse, he only really showed up as a producer in the last 2 months of production, which was April and May. And by the way, yes, they really finished Across the Spider-Verse at the very last minute. The same can be said with Spider-Verse 1, by the way. And with Chris Miller, it was only in the last 2 months that he stepped in and demanded some changes. Like, okay, Chris demanded you to go and do this. Chris demanded you to go and do that. You know, like those kinds of things. And by the way, I would like to go and address, because I know some people might bring this up, what about the directors? Like, the thing with the Spider-Verse movies is that both of them so far have 3 directors involved. Like, don't they have a massive say about it? Well, unfortunately, that's where things really do get complicated, and that is where their role, like Phil Lord and Chris Miller's roles, yeah, they can be pretty dangerous, because the thing is, sure, the directors can have, you know, like they can have like a massive say of how things are going to go with certain scenes, but when it comes to what Phil Lord and Chris Miller would do, keep in mind, they're not just the producers, but they're also the writers. And the thing is, with their producer credit, they have the power to veto whatever change would occur. Like, Ken Powers would look at a scene that was fully animated and say, yeah, that scene's great, let's go and keep that. But then Phil Lord would step in and say, no, I got a new idea for a scene, go get rid of that entirely and try to make something new with it. And that's pretty much the current situation that has been addressed in this entire article, or at least this is just the footnotes of it. I highly recommend that you go and read this article right over here. Very fascinating. And by the way, I know it's going to be a very tough read, but it is one of those that it's kind of like you need to read it more so than you want to read it, because it does reflect a very dark truth in regards to the production of a highly beloved feature like Across the Spider-Verse, and it reveals how it is to go and work with Phil Lord and Chris Miller. To which, as it turns out, like, yes, I know there are many people who do love their movies, but at the same time, animators absolutely hate Phil Lord and Chris Miller as bosses. I don't know if there are many people in the animation industry who would really want to work with Phil Lord and Chris Miller. So, and in fact, there are actually plenty of animators in the industry right now who made a vow that they never want to work with Phil Lord and Chris Miller again. They don't want to go into that massive hell that they went and endured. And I can understand if this is something that's just massively heartbreaking to go and read, because I know with Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they have been very admired, that they're like the new hot shots, the new innovators of the animation industry. And the thing with Lord and Miller is that what they are known for the most is breaking the rules of what people would think an animated feature would be, or specifically with a computer animated feature. And that's what they have been highly praised with movies like the Lego Movie, or the things they have produced with the Mitchells and Spider-Verse. It's the fact that they would go and break the rules and really take the medium to a whole new level by doing things that have never been thought of before. Yeah! And I already hear some of the praises with that little subscription. Thank you, thank you, DJ. But at the same time, however, there is also a massive problem that comes with breaking the rules, because there's another side of Phil Lord and Chris Miller where they would go and break the rules the same way that the CEO of OceanGate broke the rules with his submarine that would go and like let billionaires see the Titanic, or well, the most that they could before, The thing is that at the same time as Phil Lord and Chris Miller would break the rules of animation, they would also break those kinds of rules that are meant to be there for the well-being and the safety of the animators. That it really felt like their heads are way too much onto the movie itself to go and create a massive story that they know that people would really get engaged, that they're just completely blinded by how things are going with their actual animators. They're blinded by how the well-being, the mental health of the people who are actually working for them, who are actually making the feature film. And the thing is, again, I'm not taking away their talent, because I know that Phil Lord and Chris Miller are extremely talented filmmakers, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is definite proof of that. But it's so amazing that you can have people who can be so talented, yet so incompetent at the same time, that they don't know how to make an animated feature without full-on exploiting their animators, really, really taking advantage of them to the point where like they would have to suffer for their art. And even though there have been like over 100 animators and artists who quit the production because they couldn't handle how Phil Lord and Chris Miller would run things, there are those who had to go and stay, that they don't really have much of a choice. Because the sad thing is, if you would go and quit a production, there's a very good chance that you're not really going to get rewarded in the long run. Because let's say there was one animator who quit mid-production in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If their work that they have done was full-on rejected, if it was not there, then they don't get credit. They don't have anything for their animation reel. They don't have anything for their demo, for their portfolio to show off and to present for their next work. It doesn't matter if they were involved with the production or that they did legitimately work at Sony Pictures Animation for it. If if their contribution did not make it at the end, if it didn't make it at the end of the production, if it didn't make it in the final film, then they don't get the credits. They don't get anything in return. Yeah, they'll get the payment during, but in the long run, they have nothing. They don't have the proof to say that they worked on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But the worst thing is that there are those who don't have a choice financially. And that is because there are a lot of people who worked on Spider-Verse that they are immigrants. And this is honestly one of the saddest things about what happened here. And this is actually highlighted in the final paragraph of the Vulture article, to which it states here, artists in this industry are generally very self-critical. They internalize feedback and want to do their best. If they love a project, they will put the extra hours for free because they want to prove themselves and they want their work to be good. Their work is how they get the next job. A movie like this is taking advantage of those people creatively. But workers are also vulnerable in another sense. They want to stay in Canada. They're on visas from countries from which they'd ideally like to emigrate. aspirations to immigrate keep them tied to the studio. They're underpaid, so they need the OT to pay the bills, or the overtime to pay their bills. The relocation package doesn't cover costs, so you can only make a production like this when the people doing it feel as though they have no other choice in what they need to do for their financial security. That's no way to live your life. And that's kind of the saddest thing about all this. And I know this might be like a shocking accusation, but the truth is, when it comes to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and possibly with their other films as well, like Mitchell's, Cloudy, and Lego, Phil Lord and Chris Miller are exploiting immigrants. They're legit exploiting artists and immigrants for them to produce their features because of the absolute convoluted way they would go and be filmmaking this. It's honestly, again, it's absolutely ridiculous the way that they would go and work things out. And you might be wondering, by the way, how is it that the higher-ups at Sony Pictures would even allow this to go and happen? Why would they be okay? Like, isn't there actual unions that would that would be in place and have regulations to prevent that to go and happen? Well, honestly, I'm just going to go and reset the ad timer right now. I'm just going to go and give a bit of a break, but when we do come back, I will go and explain the problem with Sony Pictures Animation and Sony Pictures and how they are complicit in the exploitation of their own animators. So we are back, and as I was saying, yes, Sony Pictures is definitely complicit in this entire situation. And I just want to say right now that one problem that I have with Sony Pictures Animation that honestly really irks me is the way that they are very scummy in terms of unions. Now, I know that there are many studios. In fact, most major studios are very much scumbags when it comes to unions, and they have a clear hatred for them because, well, there is a set of rules that they have no choice but to pay more money for their artists. And like there are some companies out there that are a lot more straightforward about it. Like I think it's safe to say Disney is pretty anti-union, and yeah, it often shows. But the thing that makes it very scummy with Sony Pictures in particular is that technically, yes, Sony Pictures Animation is a unionized studio. Like, they have collaborated with the Animators Guild, and I do believe they are currently in discussions for a new deal with the Animators Guild. But here's the major catch, though. Sony Pictures Animation in Culver City, that is only the pre-production place. They only make the core aspect, the foundation of the animated films. Most of the people who would make Sony Pictures Animation movies are not at Sony Pictures Animation. Like, it's mainly just the pre-production place that they would go and develop there. Now, the actual place where most of the people who do work on those movies are actually in Sony Pictures Imageworks in Vancouver, BC. And that place is not unionized. And that's the thing that really feels very scummy because, yeah, they'll put on this fake mask to say that they are pro-union, but in actuality, they found ways to go and, like, slither around unions to go and underpay their animators. And the sad thing about it is that, considering that we are talking about Sony Pictures, this is not the first time that we have heard about the situation in a Sony Pictures production. You probably remember the controversy related to Sausage Party back in 2016, where it's a little bit of a similar story, where in this case, instead of Phil Lord, we got Greg Tiernan, who really exploited the crap out of the animators because they were non-union and they were forced to go and work overtime, to work ridiculous hours, and to really make them feel burned out and very demotivated about the entire experience. So again, this is not the first time that it happened in a Sony production, and a big part of it is because of the fact that they purposely go and let most of the animation, or let most of the people who would work on their movies, to be in a non-union environment, like in Vancouver, BC, in Sony Pictures Imageworks. And I just want to state right now, it's only recently that they do start to go and actually unionize studios. There are only a handful that have begun to be unionized in Canada, and I think a few places in Vancouver, BC, but the point is, Canada is still very non-union when it comes to productions and animation, which is a shame because Canada and in major metropolises, including Vancouver and in Montreal, they really are growing in terms of the business. In fact, not too long ago, a few weeks actually, it was announced that Sony Pictures is opening a brand new Sony Pictures Imageworks in Montreal. And the chances of that being unionized, I don't know. But if they're just, I don't know, if this is a tactic that that they're doing to try to avoid unions, then honestly, I don't know if I want to welcome it in Montreal. But the point is that this entire situation, the reason why all this even happened in the first place is because of the fact that there are no unions that would put in rules and laws to go and protect the well-being of animators, to make sure that they are well paid, to make sure that they are not overworked. And I can guarantee you right now, I don't think you will ever see Phil Lord and Chris Miller work in an animation studio that is fully unionized. Like, you're never going to see them work in a place like DreamWorks Animation or Disney Animation or even Illumination Entertainment, because those studios have fully unionized, fully unionized artists, and they have their own set of rules to protect their rights. And the way that Phil Lord and Chris Miller would go and make their movies, they need to sacrifice some of those rights. Again, they're known to break the rules, and they want to break union rules in order to make their movies because they're so freaking focused on trying to develop the whole thing all together just to go and like scrap that and try to redo it again. In fact, it even stated in this article that it has happened, in fact, most of the time, where animators would have to go and redo shots 5 times. And that's almost every single shot that you would see in the film. Imagine being fully redone, like fully reanimated 5 times, just for Phil Lord to say, nah, I don't like it that way. In fact, I did a little change of the story. Can you go and make an update so that you can include that too? Like, imagine how frustrating that can be. It's honestly such a ridiculous thing. And honestly, it makes me question Phil Lord and Chris Miller's image, because they present, like, when you look at them online and when you see them in interviews and stuff like that, they present themselves as very empathetic. They present themselves as very democratic, as very pro-union, and always looking out for artists and animators and all that kind of stuff. Like, they want to present themselves that they are a part, like they are very for the people, that they are a part of the people, and that, they feel the pain of others. But honestly, after hearing this story, it's either that they are so oblivious of their own production, like they are so oblivious of their own work ethic and their own work environment, that they have no idea that they are going completely against their own values. That, or they're just doing it on purpose for the sake of virtue signaling, that they're kind of lying just to give themselves a positive image. Now, I'm not saying that is the case, but it's like really either or. It's just like the way they present themselves on social media and what's been revealed on this Vulture article, it really does highlight 2 completely different Phil Lords and Chris Millers. And that's honestly the big, that really is kind of a major situation that eventually they need to go and address. And funny enough, though, I will state that there are a couple of people in this article that actually went into the defense of Phil Lord and Chris Miller and Sony Pictures. But funny enough, they didn't really do a good job. And that is specifically coming from 2 people, Michelle Grady, who is the executive vice president and general manager of Sony Pictures Imageworks, and one of the producers of Spider-Verse, Amy Pascal. And in this article, they would do their best to try to contradict what the other animators have stated about what happened during production, saying that no, everything is fine. They don't represent what most artists think about Spider-Verse and all that kind of stuff. No, everything is fine. No, Phil Lord is a great guy. He knows what he's doing and all that kind of crap. But the worst part is that when they are confronted about many of the problems that happened during production, I think this is honestly the worst response that you could find in this entire situation, is actually right over here. And this is from Amy Pascal, by the way. To the workers who felt demoralized by having revised final renders 5 times in a row, the Spider-Verse producer, Amy Pascal, said, "I guess, welcome to making movies." Like, how much of a dead weight response is that? That's like literally saying, you know, that really is the response of like, I got nothing to say about it. I got nothing to defend about it. Oh, well, boys will be boys, I guess. Like, oh my God. And you can keep in mind, this is Amy Pascal. This is someone who has never legitimately worked in animated features. Like, very rarely would she ever actually be in the shoes of the production crew actually making movies. Like, this is a woman that is just way too high in her own privileges. And she's just saying, oh, well, it is what it is. Like, she literally has no defense. And throughout this article, both Michelle Grady and Amy Pascal, they don't do that great of a job to go and defend their take or defend Phil Lord and Chris Miller about their mishandling of the production. It's honestly ridiculous. But the worst thing I will say, and this is probably the saddest part of all this, is that despite of what it has all been revealed, despite the fact that Phil Lord and Chris Miller still have no idea how to properly produce an animated feature, despite everything about this, I highly doubt that much is really going to change. I don't know if we are going to see any improvements that would come because of that would come out of all this, or I don't know if we will see actual consequences, mainly because of the fact that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has been very successful. I mean, in the mind of Sony Pictures, I mean, we know for a fact they don't care about the well-being of artists and animators. They would go and look at the results of Spider-Verse with how highly praised it has been and with how much money it's doing. They're pretty much in the mindset of, well, if it ain't broken, then why fix it? You know, they're just gonna, they will be in the defense of Lord and Miller because they have still been proven to be profitable. And because of that, they're not gonna go and immediately change the habits of how Lord and Miller would go and make their movies in the fear that it would break the flow of how things are currently going with the Spider-Verse movies and with their brand as well. So honestly, I would love to see that that both Lord and Miller would be held accountable by this, but I don't know if the higher ups would really go and do so. And by the way, I just want to go and address this right now. I'm not doing this to go and slam Phil Lord and Chris Miller. I'm not doing I'm not going back into the whole hating Sony phase and take down Lord and Miller because they suck and all that kind of stupid crap. No, I want them to improve. I want them to do better. And I mean, I do acknowledge that they can be very talented. I've already said this before, but this needs to be addressed that this is not okay. I mean, you could still love Spider-Verse. That's perfectly fine. But I'm asking to go and separate the art from the artist. I don't care how good Spider-Verse is. This type of working condition is never okay. And honestly, Lord and Miller needs to be held accountable. They need to be called out on this to say that, hey, what you're doing is wrong. What you are doing, again, is exploiting animators and immigrants for your art. Either wake up to reality and realize how they are feeling during this whole production, or honestly get the hell out, because honestly, or just stop playing around, stop pretending that you care about unions and all that kind of stuff, because clearly you guys care more about yourselves and your reputation more so than the people who are actually working on your feature films. It's honestly ridiculous. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be called out. And I mean, I'm just saying right now, I know I'm probably going to get backlash. I'm probably going to get so much hate from Phil Lord and Chris Miller fans, and they're going to dogpile on me and bring back like the stupid crap that I used to say about Sony Animation and all that kind of stuff. But I still feel like this needs to be addressed. This needs to be called out. That how they would go and make animated movies is extremely incompetent, and it hurts animators more so than it would legitimately help them. Like, the fact that they would work on Spider-Verse 2, like, is that really worth sacrificing some of their own well-being? No. Like, I understand, like, the whole meaning about, oh, like, you got to suffer from your art, but no, this is not the case. You know, especially when, like, this is just, especially when this is just Lord and Miller, who has this extremely convoluted and very broken down way where they're just taking advantage of animators who are not unionized. And also, I just want to say that there is a part of me that felt like I kind of knew that something like this was happening, especially when they mention about the budget. Like, you probably have heard before that the budget for Across the Spider-Verse was around $100 million. This article actually stated that it's actually $150 million, but back then it was said to be like $100 million. And I remember people were celebrating Spider-Verse and slamming on Elemental because that film had double the budget of $200 million. And they were saying like, yo, see, man, see, that's how you do it. And Spider-Verse did it half the cost. Elemental, on the other hand, they're just wasting money for nothing and all that kind of stuff. But then again, there was a part of me that always felt like, hold on a sec, there's something that's not right about all this. Because, okay, you have a budget of like 100 million or 150 million, and yet they would also take pride in the fact that they would say that over 1,000 animators worked on this movie. How much did these animators get paid? How much, like, how, you know, like, in terms of how much that they have actually worked, how much money did they receive for the work that they have done in Spider-Verse? I'm just saying, because if they have a lower budget and worked so many hours, it's probably not that much, or at the very least, not that much compared to those working on Elemental. I'm just saying, there, like, that for me was kind of the first sign that there was something not right going on with the production of Across the Spider-Verse. And not to mention that it kind of reminds me back, like, when, like, another thing that people would used to bash Disney for, like, another thing that it reminds me of, I remember back, like, in 2020, when on Disney Plus, Disney would go and put out the documentary series Into the Unknown, which explains the making of Frozen 2. And there are some people, they would go and, like, they would already hate Frozen 2, and they would slam the documentary saying that the production was apparently such a mess. That would explain why Frozen 2 didn't come out great, because the filmmakers didn't really know what they were doing, and all that, and all those kinds of comments. Well, if that is the case, I mean, looking into what they would do with Frozen 2, yeah, like, it was a bit of a messy production. But the thing is, the people at Disney making Frozen 2, they knew what they were doing when compared to Spider-Verse. The way that Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee, the way that they handled the production of Frozen 2, it's way better than how Phil Lord and Chris Miller handled their movies with Spider-Verse, Cloudy, Mitchells, and Lego. There is kind of this massive hypocrisy. Like, if a bad production explains a bad movie, how do you explain this? It's honestly ridiculous. It really is. And all this needs to be called out. And overall, again, I just want to say that if you guys still love Spider-Verse, then it's perfectly fine. I mean, I still love Spider-Verse. It's still, like, possibly my favorite movie from Sony Animation. You know, I'm not taking that away from you. I'm not saying to go and boycott the movie. I'm not saying you should go against the movie. But what I am saying is that no matter how great the product itself is, that doesn't mean that it makes it okay for the poor treatment that they would give to the people who would go and create the movie. They still need to be held accountable. They still need to be called out on this, because I can guarantee you it results in a massive double standard that anyone else who would go and if anyone else would do the same thing that Lord and Miller would do in Across the Spider-Verse, I can guarantee you that they would be blacklisted because of the way that they would completely waste money, they would waste time, and they would waste resources. And in the case of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I can see now that, honestly, their reputation feels like they're on thin ice. They're not fully canceled. Their careers aren't over because of this, but they really are on thin ice right now, especially if it's true that Phil Lord would continuously clash with Sony Pictures. And from there, and the reason why I say this is because, yeah, their movies are profitable now. But if it does happen that in the future, suddenly they would start losing money on their movies, and it has happened before, especially when it comes to the Lego Movie 2, the second part, then they would have no one to blame but themselves. It would be their fault that their filmmaking process would turn out to be such a disaster that really it's like, it's just their tactic and how much that they have completely wasted, that it's their fault that the studio lost money. And from there, they may end up never working again. Maybe not entirely, but yeah, their reputation would go in an all-time low if their animated features would prove to no longer be that much profitable. So yeah, honestly, there is actually one more thing that I do want to go and address, and that is actually regarding what's going to happen to Beyond the Spider-Verse, because that's still going to be coming up. And for now, it is still scheduled for the end of March of next year. How are things going with that production? Well, according to this, it's not going pretty well. There was one comment, someone talked about how things are currently going on with Beyond the Spider-Verse, and it's actually right over here, to which they said, they announced that Beyond the Spider-Verse will be released in March of next year. I've seen people say, oh, they probably worked on it at the same time. There is no way that movie is coming out then. There's been progress on the pre-production side of things, but as far as the production side goes, the only progress that has been made on the third one is any exploration or tests that were done before the movie was split into two parts. Everyone's been fully focused on Across the Spider-Verse and barely crossing the finish line. And now it's like, oh yeah, now we have to do the other one. And I mean, at this current point, with the fact that right now, like there's still the strike and stuff like that, like I know I stated previously that I thought, yeah, it's most likely going to be delayed because there's that writer strike going on and a possible actor strike. But no, in this case, it's for sure that it's not going to be released in March. In fact, it's doubtful if it's even going to be released in 2024 because of the messy production that it has been. And most likely, Sony Pictures is going to continue to enable Lord and Miller's toxic work environment to the point that we're just going to go into this endless cycle again of like the toxic work ethic of continuously wasting resources, wasting animators' time, and really taking damage to their mental health just to go and produce this third movie. So I'm just saying right now, with what's been revealed and the way that Lord and Miller would go and work on these movies, it's pretty much very likely that we're going to end up seeing a 2025 release on Beyond the Spider-Verse, that people will have to be a bit more patient with what's been going on. So yeah, honestly, this is just my massive discussion about this whole thing. And again, chances are I may get backlash for this. I may get massive hate for it. But you know what? I still stand with what I say. I still stand that Phil Lord and Chris Miller have been revealed to be very talented, yet incredibly idiotic and incompetent filmmakers, to which they don't know how to produce an animated feature or how to even make an animated film in the first place without exploiting their artists and immigrants. So I'm still standing to my position on that. So with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I know I've talked more than enough on this, but now I want to know from you. What are your thoughts on this whole story? Let's see now. It always feels that no matter what, many filmmakers will never respect nor care about animators who has to go through hell and back just to get enough money to live. It won't probably be long until we see animators unite with the writers and go on strike. And what's sad about this is that before this story goes out, Marvel was critiqued for using AI for the intro of Secret Invasion, and people were pointing at Spider-Verse as something that respects the artist. Yeah, and I mean, I'll just say now, I know that it's not exclusively a Sony thing. It's not exclusively a Phil Lord and Phil Lord and Chris Miller thing. Like, many people are guilty of this. But this especially needs to be pointed out, especially when it feels like many people might let Lord and Miller get away with it just because of, oh, look how good this product turned out to be. Let's see now. All I have to say is just shameful, especially to the directors. You mean the producers. But anyways, I mean, talk about rushing to the final product. Like, if I would do something like that, it would be because of anxiety reasons. But for them, they really don't even sound like they have the patience. Just head first into the final product before even testing works. Not one have the final say on the just do it attitude, only to be thrown out afterwards. Just shameful. It's no wonder they were kicked out of the Han Solo movie. Yeah, and that's kind of the crazy thing, is that all this really makes Lucasfilm very justifiable into what they have done. Like, honestly, I completely get why Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm's entirely had to kick out Lord and Miller from the Han Solo project, because the way that they would break the rules of filmmaking like this, it's completely reckless, and it's also very destructive. So they wouldn't want, so honestly, yeah, maybe they're in the right. Maybe they did what's for the best for the Han Solo movie, or maybe it's not for the best for the Han Solo movie because it turned out to be a massive flop, but it is for the best for the people working at Lucasfilm so that they don't have to face the wrath of Lord and Miller's incompetence. Let's see. As much as I adore Across the Spider-Verse, happy to reclaim #1 at the box office, and still listening to their new soundtrack to this day, this news saddens me. It reminds me of the Toy Story 2 scenario of artists trying to make things perfect, but being overworked because of the executives' demands. If I were them, delay the third film so it wouldn't come out as mid, and give artists a break as a Spider-Verse fan. All studios like Sony and even Marvel Studios need to treat artists with respect. I understand how you feel, man. As much as I love it Across the Spider-Verse, this does prove the old saying of old habits die hard. The way these animators were treated is pretty sickening, and the proof that practices like Phil Lord's should be discouraged in the industry. And with those statements regarding Beyond the Spider-Verse, yeah, I wouldn't mind if it got pushed back to 2025. Hell, delay it to 2030. I don't care. Give them enough time to finish the movie. Or honestly, honestly, more so than like a schedule, I want to see someone put Phil Lord and Chris Miller on a leash. Like, honestly, make them change, make them change their attitude, discourage their practices, tell Chris Miller to actually be more involved with the production, and tell Phil Lord to stop wasting resources. Tell him to go and, like, whatever you write, stick with it. Don't change your mind at the last freaking second. Seriously, that would be something more important than the delays. Anyways, I hate to say it, but I do think the Sony executives and also Phil Lord didn't learn their lesson from years ago when they handled their artists at Sony Animation, which sucks really, because I thought the animators did a great job with their work. I was suspicious on why it's a bigger budget, the long running time, and the amount of people working on this. It sucks that the animators deal with this mess of a production, and as an animator myself, animators deserve better. Then there's a side note, but it got cut out. Anyways, I don't have a lot of time left, so just a couple more to read. Suddenly, I'm glad Ron Howard directed Solo. The Sony Spider-Man trilogy curse strikes again. Guess Sony let another sausage party disaster happen. If this is what it takes to stylize animation, I shudder to imagine the horror stories that would come out of TMNT Mutant Mayhem. I'm so glad I decided to watch Elemental 3 times instead of seeing Across the Spider-Verse even once. I also must question Lord and Miller's actual involvement with the Clone High and Jump Street movies. Did they even create Joan of Arc? That I feel like is a whole other story there. All right, I'm just going to go and read one more comment before we move on to the next story. All right, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring regarding this news. First of all, unionize Canadian visual effects studios ASAP. And second, I think there is a lesson to be learned regarding auteurism and hero worship. In the words of Everything Everywhere All at Once director Daniel Kwan, genius does not stem from individuals like us, but rather genius emerged from the collective. We need to start taking the quote into full effect moving onward. Exactly. So I know that was a lot, but we're going to go on to our next break. And the next story that we have over here, we will be discussing another calamity, but not regarding Sony, but what's been happening at, of course, Warner Brothers Discovery. And we are back. Now, when it comes to the next story that we have here, we will be discussing about that oh so troublesome company, Warner Brothers Discovery. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Just make sure my throat is well connected to my head. Anyways, okay, I got that covered. But anyways, yes, what the fridge did Warner Brothers Discovery do now? What the fridge is it now that they have done to go and get the entire internet and the entire entertainment industry to be mad at them? Because we have heard so many shenanigans that has happened back last year with all the tax write-offs and the cancellations and all that kind of stuff. And not to mention this week, oh boy, man, they had a very bad time lately, especially with what happened to The Flash, with what happened with Turner Classic Movies, and all that kind of stuff. I will be talking about them soon, don't worry. But this time around, oh boy, did this make people mad. And it very much shows a very negative light on what is the current status of Warner Brothers Discovery. And what I am talking about is the fact that now they're going to be selling some of their music. Yes, it has been revealed that Warner Brothers Discovery is now going to be taking half or around half of their publishing assets of their film and TV music, and they're going to go and try to sell that off for $500 million, for $500 million. Now, keep in mind that they are just planning to do so. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is official. They haven't done anything just yet. But that is something that they want to do. And there may be some companies that are keeping an eye on to see if they legit want to go and do that. And in terms of what music specifically they're going to go and sell, even though we do have the detail of the fact that this is music that does come from their TV shows and from their movies, we don't know which ones specifically they're going to go and sell. In fact, this article on Variety states that there may be a chance that they're going to go and sell music from Purple Rain, from Evita, from Sweeney Todd, from Rent, and maybe some Batman movies as well. And even one notable one that they have mentioned that really got a lot of people's attention is As Time Goes By from Casablanca. And I'll explain why that one is very significant. And as to whom they might sell it to, well, it says here that maybe Sony Pictures, or not Sony Pictures, just Sony in general may be interested in buying that. However, at the same time, some people say that the chances of them actually selling it may not be likely, or especially they're not going to go and sell it for $500 million. And it states here, reading from my source on Variety, this little paragraph states, however, some observers cast a skeptical eye on the deal, saying that many of the company's assets are more than half a century old and are declining in value and difficult to exploit. They are said to consist largely of film themes and cues, with comparatively few conventional songs that would seem to have little familiarity or resonance in the present or future. The catalog is currently under a multi-year administration deal with Universal Music Publishing. So that's currently where we are right now. And again, I'd like to emphasize nothing is set in stone so far, But we do know that this is the current position of Warner Brothers Discovery, that now they're starting to go and sell some of their assets. And that's the thing that really is concerning and why people are really freaking out over this news, is the fact that now Warner Brothers is resorting to pretty much take itself apart piece by piece to go and sell it and get some extra money. But why is it that they're even doing so in the first place? What's even the point of this? Well, in case you have forgotten, Warner Brothers is in critical debt. They have a massively huge debt that they might that they have to pay that's probably bigger than the debt of most countries in this world. Because as I am recording this, Warner Brothers Discovery has a debt of around $50 billion. Yes, that is billion with a B. And yes, that is 50 as in 50. It is really that bad with what is going on at Warner Brothers Discovery. And that is the big explanation as to why they committed the insane actions that they did last year. All those tax write-offs, all those major cancellations, including projects that were very close to completion, like Batgirl and Scooby-Doo Holiday Haunt, like the complete restructure of their streaming platform, like getting rid of shows on the streaming platform in the first place. All that was done for the purpose of trying to pay the debt. And even all that they have done, it doesn't even cover much of a fraction. It's only just a little bit that they were able to pay off, and they still have this massive debt that they have to go and deal with. And what makes people a little bit scared with what Warner Brothers is doing right now is that now they are resorting to just take away their own pieces to go and sell it to someone else. And I know, like, some people would argue that this doesn't seem like much. This is just the publishing assets of the music and television, the music publishing assets from what showed up in their films and in their television. Like, it's literally just that. But then again, that is the start of something. That is technically the beginning of a very dark precedence where you never know if in the future they could go bigger. I know this might sound like a bit of a paranoia thing, and this is all just what if and stuff like that. But what people fear the most is that they're going to start off with selling half of the music publishing assets that they got from a specific genre of music that they do have. But then they could go and sell like even more things that they have within. Suddenly they'll sell maybe like all the cartoons from Hanna-Barbera. Maybe they're going to then go and sell a lot of the TV shows that they released back from the 1990s onward. And then they're going to go and sell their entire animation division and all that kind of stuff. Like people are pretty much fearing that this would start a massive domino effect, especially right now when Warner Brothers, not only do they have a massive debt, but their business is not doing extremely well. And this is especially the case with the fact that currently Warner Brothers Discovery is in a massively doomed situation. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention that on top of all the music that they're thinking about selling, the biggest one that a lot of people are freaking out about is the fact that they want to sell As Time Goes By from Casablanca. Now, maybe there is a chance that you haven't heard of As Time Goes By. But you might be thinking, oh, maybe people are freaking out because, like, you know, Casablanca is one of the greatest movies of all time and one of the greatest films during the golden age of Hollywood and stuff like that. That's why people are freaking out, because of its connection of Casablanca. No, not really. It's mainly because of how Warner Brothers is using As Time Goes By now. Let me ask you this. Do you know that little piece of music that plays during the logo of Warner Brothers? Like when you watch a Warner Brothers picture movie, like it would start out with that little piano piece and then it turns into an orchestra, you know, like da 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 boom ba da 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 da. Like, you know that music? That is As Time Goes By. that is the update. You know, that's the big thing that they're using the song for. It's for the fanfare of the Warner Brothers logo. And now they're thinking about selling it, which is honestly ridiculous, because this would be the equivalent of Disney trying to sell the asset of When You Wish Upon a Star. Like, it's almost unheard of that they would try to sell what they are currently using as like the anthem of their company, the anthem of their movie division. It's really something that like is freaking people out now. But as I was saying before, the big reason why they are doing this in the first place is mainly because of the fact that Warner Brothers is in a doomed situation. They're not in a bad situation, but like full on doomed, where like, yeah, they still have the massive debt and they don't really have a whole lot else to go and actually get some revenue, to go and actually build up some profits, because, oh my God, especially this week, it's been a nightmare for Warner Brothers Discovery. I mean, on top of the debt that they have to go and pay, and on top of this going on, there's also the factor of Turner Classic Movies, where they were considering to shutting that down entirely, like no longer need Turner Classic Movies, just take that thing out entirely. And that was a news that really shocked the entertainment industry so badly that Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese's, and what is it again? Paul W. Thompson? I think that's him. I could be wrong. But all of them got together and they went to David Zaslav, knock on his door and say, yo, dude, we got a problem, yo. And so far it looks like the current situation of Turner Classic Movies, it's not looking well, but someone corrected me. Paul Thomas and Anderson. Yes, thank you very much. Those three directors, Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese's, and Paul Thomas Anderson, in which they got together and called out David Zaslav to say, yo, dude, this ain't cool. Keep Turner Classic Movies. Which for now, it's doing okay. For now, it doesn't look like Turner Classic Movies is going anywhere, but their status is not looking good, especially when it looks like WBD wants to get rid of them entirely. So the big consequence from that is that their relationship with filmmakers not looking so hot. And not to mention, there's also the factor of there's The Flash, you know, which was supposed to be their biggest movie to put out this year. Like, they were really banking it on becoming like the biggest movie of 2023, which turned out to be such a colossal disaster that right now at the box office, even Pixar's Elemental is actually doing better than them. So it's pretty much a guarantee that they're going to be losing millions of dollars, maybe over $100 million is going to be completely gone because of The Flash alone. And not to mention, there's also the factor of CNN. That's also a massive issue, where recently David Zaslav had to go and fire the CEO because during his whole time working on CNN, it's just been an absolute calamity, just really taking away CNN's reputation. Like, probably did a far better job than Donald Trump in ruining CNN's reputation. And speaking of Donald Trump, not to mention the infamous Donald Trump town hall special that they put up with an audience filled with Trump supporters and Trump spewing out complete nonsense that really did give a serious scar to CNN's legacy. So right now, even that channel is doing so poorly with the CEO completely out. So as you can, and not to mention the strikes. Of course, the strikes is giving massive problems to Warner Brothers Discovery. The fact that right now there's a writer strike that is still happening, and soon it's going to be 2 months old of that. And then there's a possibility of an actor strike. So already there's a bunch of productions that have been delayed because of the strike. And if there is going to be an actor strike going on, then most of their productions are going to be stopped entirely, which means that they don't have have much revenue or much money to go and really save up. So this really does put Warner Brothers in a massive dire situation. And if they don't have anything to go and really rank up some cash soon, then we may be seeing more news like this, that they could be selling some of their own assets to some other companies just because they're so desperate to pay their $50 billion debt. So that's just something that I want to go and talk about, and something to really highlight, because I know there's been many people out there who have been freaking out over the crazy situation that has occurred with Warner Brothers Discovery, especially now that they're thinking of selling away the music publishing assets of many of their songs, including the fanfare of the Warner Brothers Pictures logo. So, I mean, it's been crazy. And again, nothing is set in stone. Maybe they're not going to end up selling it after all. But with how things are going with Warner Brothers Discovery and how they've been having one of their worst weeks so far, it's just, it's just been a massive mess. And it really does put their future in question, especially with David Zaslav taking the helm as he is currently, or he pretty much is the most hated CEO in the entertainment industry. I was about to say one of the most hated CEOs, but then again, Bob Chapek was fired back in November. So yeah, it's just been all around crazy with what's been happening here. All right, so with that said, I'd like to go into the chat wall. And now I want to ask you, how do you feel about this deal that they are negotiating of selling their film and TV music publishing assets for $500,000? Do you think things are going to turn around for Warner Brothers? Do you think things will get better for them? Will they be able to pay more and more of their debt? Or are they just in a position that no matter what they do, they're just going to be screwed, and the future of Warner Brothers is going to be very bleak? Let's see now. My one question here is, how do you sell music from Purple Rain? That's just Prince's music. That's like Touchstone selling Crocodile Rock because they used Romeo and Juliet. But for real, the decision to sell off this music, especially as time goes by, is really dumb. And so is the decision of nearly shutting down TCM. Hell, when Spielberg, Scorsese, and Anderson got together to call Zaslav, all I could say to myself is, okay, go for it, guys. Whoop his ass. You got this. Oh, and let me just go and explain. I think there is a reasonable explanation for this. I don't think they're just selling off the music of Purple Rain. They're not really selling off Prince's music. I think they're just specifically looking into the songs specifically in that song, specifically in the film. I mean, like, they're specifically selling the songs that were played during Purple Rain. Like, you know how there are you actually said it yourself, like, you know how there are different versions of music, such as you got Crocodile, you got Crocodile Rock, like you got the Elton John version that we all know, but then there's also like the Crocodile Rock in The Muppet Show, and then you got the Crocodile Rock in Romeo and Juliet. So I think that's specifically what they mean. They're not selling Prince's music, they're selling the ones specifically made for the Purple Rain movie. Let's see now. I don't know about you guys, but we are seeing Warner Brothers Discovery heading themselves into bankruptcy. With The Flash flopping and getting beat by Spider-Verse and Elemental this weekend, selling music, and the situation of TCM and CNN right now, I don't imagine what a world where Warner Brothers will have this comeback story after years of doom and gloom. But we are seeing the downfall of one of the top six studios out there. The shareholders need to get rid of Zaslav, or else we won't see the world where Warner Brothers exists. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying right now that there will be no Warner Brothers Discovery in the future. I'm not saying that right now. It's just that with the way things are going, it's not a positive outlook into how Warner Brothers Discovery is doing as a business. I mean, I don't blame you for thinking that eventually there could be a bankruptcy. I personally doubt it, but I think it's safe to say that that business is not going great, or it's not even doing good at Warner Brothers. Let's see now. with Warner Brothers probably gutting TCM, the flash bombing at the box office, which is giving the, which I'm giving the, hold on a sec, it's giving the, I got that ready. But anyways, to now selling the music, including As Time Goes By song, shows that are not out of this mess right now. Not even Barbie can save them from the disaster. Don't know what else can Warner Brothers do in this situation, but if it gets worse, then they will likely continue to sell more stuff like TV and movies, for example. Yeah, I mean, who knows, man. I'm just gonna say right now, like, one thing that could happen, I would not be surprised if they would shut down Max. That one way that they would ultimately save money is that they would bail out of the streaming battle or the streaming wars immediately. That they're gonna shut down Max, and what they're gonna do is that they're just gonna be like Sony Pictures, and they're just gonna sell their assets to like Amazon and Netflix and Apple TV Plus, or maybe even Disney or Hulu and stuff like that. I feel like that could be a possibility of what they can do in the future. Let's see what else we have. As a Flash who's less evil than Ezra Miller would say, "It was me, Barry. I was the one who made Ezra Miller a groomer and saddled your film with an astronomically high budget, so Warner Brothers would have to sell parts of itself for pennies on the dollar in order to pay on a mere fraction of its massive debt load." On the bright side, good for Elemental for beating The Flash. It's such a good movie. You know, honestly, I feel this is where, as an animation fan, I actually feel happy. And it's like, I don't know if Elemental is really going to end up becoming profitable for Pixar and Disney, but honestly, it feels exciting to see that it could happen, that Elemental might turn out to be more profitable than The Flash, that it'll actually make more money at the box office than The Flash altogether. That would be freaking hilarious and such a wonderful case of Schadenfreude. You'll be the first to hear it on this podcast if that ever happens. Okay, let's see now. Warner, WB. Why are you in my office again this time? What did you do this time? Oh God, why? I'm honestly so sad about this situation. You know it's bad when Steven Spielberg hates you. That's not a good situation you don't want to be involved with. This is looking at an old friend of yours becoming homeless on the streets of Burbank and never improving. Such tragic. F. Zaslav. Let's see what else. So this is legitimately scary. Honestly, I was already feeling the domino effect last year with all these takedowns and tax write-offs. It's hurting a lot of creators' trust in studios. If Warner Brothers shuts down or if it gets bought by another studio, then we are getting closer to a monopoly in the film, TV/media industry. Right now, Disney hasn't been doing hot right now, but still better than Warner Brothers Discovery. It's scary. Like, WBD's failure isn't even funny anymore. Oh yeah, exactly. Like, who know? Like, if it's gonna be at the point where Warner Brothers is, well, anyways, I was about to ask like who would go and buy them, but then again, there have been rumors floating around that Comcast could actually end up becoming a buyer. And I feel like we are at the point where it feels more and more likely. The more I hear about Warner Brothers Discovery and the mess that they are in, the more I feel like it is highly possible that, yeah, Comcast is going to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, and that they're gonna have like a massive, like, not a major monopoly, but we're gonna see less and less major studios. That soon it's just gonna be like Capcom versus Disney. Capcom? No. Comcast versus Disney. Sorry. I know it's not the first time that I made that mistake. Although that would be such an awesome game. When are we going to get Capcom versus Disney? Seriously, make that happen. Anyways, I'll read one more comment before we go into our next story. I'll go... where do we go? Did I read you? No, I did read that one. I'll have... with the fridge. I'll go with... yeah, this one. Warner Brothers Discovery negotiating $500 million deal to sell film and TV music publishing assets is not right. I mean, whatever studio like Universal, Disney, etc. buys up all these assets will definitely have the power, and Hollywood. I do think Warner Brothers Discovery will definitely come back with us, but they won't be the same Warner Brothers we know it will be in a new generation. For Warner Brothers, history, recovery, we know is gone. It's time to move on. Yeah. But anyways, I know that it's been a pretty shocking and scary episode, but don't worry, on our next story, it will be the grand finale. I will explain why later. And we'll go and brighten things up with some video game news, so stay tuned on that. And now, folks, it is time that we will go and cap this episode off with the grand finale. Yes, there are only 4 stories this week instead of 5. And I mean, like, I definitely talked a lot about certain stories, especially regarding what happened with the production of Across the Spider-Verse. So, I mean, it's pretty much best to go and not waste too much of your time making this episode go forever. But anyways, our final story that we have on this episode is definitely the biggest highlight that we had this week in terms of video games. Now, as you probably have heard, we did not have an E3 this year. In fact, we may no longer have an E3, considering that they've already revealed that the E3 for 2024 and 2025, they've been canceled. So at that point, video game companies have no choice but to go and make their own little presentations. But the ones who are considered to be the masters of that, and one that has certainly stood out, especially during this end of spring and beginning of summer, is none other than Nintendo. Yes, Nintendo has brought to us another Nintendo Direct, and this one really did stand out. Actually, I would even go as far and say that some people out there would go and state that this may be one of the best Nintendo Directs that we have had in a long time, with many major announcements and tons of games that have been revealed that many are absolutely excited for. So what I'm going to do here is going to be a bit of a quick lightning round, and I'll be discussing one after another, just my quick thoughts on what these games have been revealed using my source here on IGN. So let's go straight down to the bottom. So we will go from to the ones that people don't care as much to the ones that people really care. So let's go and begin. Our first one over here shall be Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharge, which is a brand new racing game that will be coming to the Switch, in which it promised that you can play with over 130 vehicles, which that one is going to be coming out on October 19th. Then afterwards, we got a crazy co-op game, or a crazy 4-player co-op game called Manic Mechanic, in which you team up with your friends to go against other players so that you could go and quickly fix up a bunch of cars. So it's kind of like that Overcooked game, but with cars. And apparently this game will be coming soon on the Switch, July 13th. Then afterwards, we got the classic board game Gloomhaven, which will be coming to the Switch, in which you could play with 17 characters with over 1,000 abilities that you can go and use. And apparently that game will be coming out on September 18th. Then afterwards, we got a new Battle Royale game, which is called Headbangers Rhythm Royale, which is basically, imagine if you mix Rhythm Heaven with Fall Guys. That's basically what you got. A bunch of battle royale games themed to music, and your avatar is just this headbanging pigeon that you could go and fully customize. And that game is actually going to be coming out on October 31st, so on Halloween. Then afterwards, you got Silent Hope. This is Silent Hope, a brand new RPG game, which apparently that one is going to be coming out on October 3rd. Then following afterwards, yes, more farm games, because what would a Nintendo Direct be without farm games? And we got a few of them here, starting with Fae Farm, which apparently is a farm sim RPG, which that is going to be coming out on September 8th. Then following afterwards, we got Penny's Big Breakaway, which is a brand new 3D platformer for the people that brought you Sonic Mania. And that spirit of Sonic that you have seen has definitely been present with this cute little platformer over here, especially with little penguins as like the enemies. Definitely looks cute, definitely looks a lot of fun. And I would say outside of the main Nintendo stuff that they have announced, this is the one that I would say really caught my attention. So they don't necessarily have a full-on release date of when this is coming out, but honestly, I'm definitely going to keep my eye on this. This looks a lot of fun, and especially if it's coming from the people who did Sonic Mania, definitely like that game. So can't wait to see what they have in store with this. And then afterwards, we got a free-to-play farm game called Palia, which is promised to be a free-to-play adventure sim that is promised to be more chillax. It's more laid back, more easy, to which that's going to be coming out during the holiday season. Then afterwards, of course, you got Just Dance, which they got the 2024 edition that will feature 40 new songs and coming out on October 24th. Then afterwards, we got an update on Splatoon 3, which with the next Splatfest, to which they announced the next Splatfest is going to be about ice cream. And the 3 teams are going to be your favorite flavors, either vanilla, strawberry, or mint chip. Then afterwards, we got a trailer for the next DLC of Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope called The Last Spark Hunter, which will be set on a musical planet. Then afterwards, we also got Myth Force. Now, for you animation fans, this one might be interesting because Myth Force actually promises to be a game inspired by Saturday morning cartoons, specifically the ones from the 1980s that are more action-packed, like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and Thundercats. So this is a new game that will be inspired by that, and that's going to be coming out on the Switch later this year. Then afterwards, we got a brand new Persona 5 game, a lot more chibi than before, called Persona 5 Tactica, which that's going to be coming out on November 17th. Then following afterwards, we got a remake. Oh yeah, there's actually a bunch of remakes, but really good remakes, by the way. We got Star Ocean, the Second Story R, the classic 1998 PlayStation game, is actually going to be coming soon on the Switch, PS5, PS4, and PC, and that's going to be coming out on November 3rd. Then following afterwards, we got Batman, but not just Batman, a highly beloved Batman, which is actually the 3 Arkham games, which is Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, and Batman Arkham Knight, which they will be all combined together for Batman Arkham Trilogy, which will be coming soon to the Nintendo Switch this fall, including all the DLCs that will be attached. Then afterwards, we got Sonic Superstar. Now, we've already heard about this we've already heard about this game before, but now we got a brand new trailer of this game, which will be coming soon in the fall. Then afterwards, we got a brand new Dragon Quest game called Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, which promises to be a combination of Dragon Quest meets Pokemon. Well, it's not going to be a crossover, it's just the feel of the game. That is actually going to be coming out on December 1st. Then afterwards, we end up having this crazy co-op game called Vampire Survivor, which that one is going to be coming soon on August 17th. Then afterwards, oh, now we got the main stuff. Brace yourselves because these are going to be some big ones, including a remake of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which is coming to the Nintendo Switch. And at the same time, they've revealed a brand new Princess Peach game. We don't have much information, but they promise us that coming soon, we will have a brand new video game, which will be starring Princess Peach. Both of them coming out in 2024. Then afterwards, we got an update on Wave 5 of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which not only did they present a brand new stage, which is called Squeaky Clean Springs, in which you race around a giant toilet, but they also revealed there are going to be new characters that you can go and play, including Petey Piranha, Wiggler, and Kamek. So that's going to be coming soon this summer. And then afterwards, we got the thing that actually started this Nintendo Direct, and I was very surprised because I didn't think they would go and reveal Pokemon stuff, because usually they would reserve Pokemon for their own Direct, in which we have a trailer for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Hidden Treasures of Area Zero. This is the new DLC that they have, which they promise will be coming soon in the fall and in the winter, specifically with the Teal Mask and Indigo Disc. It will be split into 2 parts, by the way. But in this trailer, they actually revealed a bit more info regarding what the plot line is going to be, some new characters, what the new environment will take place, as well as the Pokemon that are going to be coming back. Some of the Pokemon that have not returned initially in Pokemon and Scarlet and Violet, in which they will be arriving onto the Hidden Treasures of Area Zero. And I will say, as a Pokemon fan myself and someone who really loved Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I definitely cannot wait for this. Then afterwards, we got another remake announcement, which is regarding Pikmin 1 and 2. Now, you can go and buy it digitally, but they did promise that on September 22nd, they will release a physical copy version of it. And speaking of Pikmin, by the way, they have also revealed Pikmin 4. Well, didn't reveal, but they revealed a lot more info about the game, how it's going to work out, what the game mechanics are going to be, some of the new characters in there, as well as new Pikmin called Glow Pikmin. They've definitely shown a lot of what you are going to do in the game, and keep in mind that the game will be released on July 21st, as well as a demo that will be coming out this Wednesday on June 28th. Then following afterwards, we got a brand new WarioWare game in which it's going to be very physical in the same way as the Wii game was with WarioWare Move It, in which you got over 200 micro games in which you have to hold the Joy-Cons and you got to really move around. That's what you got to do. That's the big gimmick of this. And they are going to be releasing that on November 6th. Then following afterwards, we got an update on what is currently the biggest game of the year so far, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, to which they have revealed nothing new for the game itself, but they did confirm that later this year, we are getting amiibos based on Zelda and Ganondorf. Then following afterwards, we got a very interesting a remake, and that's actually Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1. And much like the Arkham trilogy, it's not just one game, it's actually a whole collection of games, to which they have included Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, Snake's Revenge, a screenplay book containing in-game text in each title, and a master book detailing the story and characters. And all that is going to be coming out on October 24th. And the craziest thing is, keep in mind, this is a Volume 1, so who knows when we will get more info about Volume 2 and stuff like that. Then following afterwards, we got the second Detective Pikachu game. Yes, after one successful 3DS game and a pretty successful movie, Detective Pikachu is now back with a brand new game called Detective Pikachu Returns, in which it states, by the way, reading on my source on IGN, that this new game promises to dive deep into the origins of Detective Pikachu and allow players to solve a ton of mysteries across Rhyme City alongside Tim Goodman and other Pokemon, in which that is going to be coming out on October 6th. And then afterwards, what is possibly the most exciting remake that they have announced, Super Mario RPG. Yes, there is going to be a 3D HD remake of the classic Super Mario RPG game, which that is going to be coming out on November 17th. And yes, we will be seeing the comeback of not just beloved characters like Mario, Bowser, and Peach, but also fan favorites such as Mallow and Geno. Yes, Geno is finally coming back after all these years. And then last, but certainly not least, what is debatably the biggest announcement throughout this entire thing, the grand finale of the Nintendo Direct, Super Mario Bros. Wonders, which promises to be a brand new 2D Mario game. And what's very interesting to note is that it actually has its own unique art style. That it's not, it's not like the typical 2.5D Mario games. It's not like new Super Mario Brothers where they would go and like have the 3D models just be on a 2D platform and stuff. Like, no, this actually has this new intriguing art style that's a little bit more different than previous Mario games, but it actually fits very nicely. Like, it actually looks very cute. It actually looks pleasant. It looks very good. And the best way to describe Super Mario Bros. Wonders is that this is going to be a lot more surrealistic, where it does happen if you pick up a Wonder Flower, suddenly everything turns into a game that was designed by Salvador Dali, where pipes come to life and like all logic gets thrown out the window. And on top of actually having plenty more playable characters with not just Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach, but on top of that, you can also play as Daisy and you can play as Yoshi. But that is nothing compared to the biggest thing that they have revealed. And I think I could go and mean that literally, where Nintendo Direct decided to use their magical genie-like powers and just say, I got it. You want to see something great? Talk about your trunk space. Check this action out. Yes, Mario is an elephant, and that is one of the big takeaways that they got on this Nintendo Switch, that on the next Mario game, there's going to be a power-up in which Mario shall turn into an elephant. We don't have a confirmation. Ooh, excuse me. Now, we don't have a confirmation if the other characters like Toad, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, and Yoshi will also turn into an elephant, but we know that Mario is an elephant. And I can guarantee you, furries are rejoicing, and man, are they happy to see Mario suddenly turn into Horton. And the funny thing is, like, that's probably some of my favorite fan art based on this, is that they literally took images of Horton from the Blue Sky Horton Hears a Who movie, and they just make him dress up as Mario. It's like, boom, Mario Wonders coming soon for the Switch. No, but honestly, this looks crazy, and this looks like a lot of fun, in which that game is going to be coming out on October 20th. So overall, I gotta say that again, this is such a wonderful Nintendo Direct, and for me personally, I definitely have a lot of games that I am personally excited about. Of course, I am definitely hyped for Super Mario Bros. Wonders. That's probably the thing I am most excited that has been announced on this Nintendo Direct. I definitely would love to play Super Mario RPG. I never got a chance to play the original version, so honestly, I feel like this would be my chance to do so I would be down for that. Fudge nabbit, what's wrong with my throat? Anyways, there's also some of the other remakes as well. Like, I'm definitely interested to see how Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1 would be, as well as Batman Arkham Trilogy. I have played the Batman Arkham games before. Like, I'm curious to go and like revisit that though. Well, as an amiibo collector, I definitely would love to get my hands on like the Zelda and Ganondorf one, even though I have yet to actually get the Link one, which honestly I feel like I should. I'm interested in WarioWare Movement. I'm curious to see what that's all about. Of course, I've already stated I'm super excited for Hidden Treasures of Area Zero. Definitely, and also definitely keeping my eye on Wave 5 of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Also, I really want to know more about this Princess Peach game. Already, I got a new game that I'm excited for in 2024, and that has to be the Princess Peach game. And like I said before, well, yeah, and then of course Sonic Superstars. I know definitely a lot of people are excited for that. And then, like I said, I am definitely optimistically curious about Penny's Big Breakaway. So there's definitely a lot that has grabbed my attention, and overall such a wonderful Direct. So that's honestly my thoughts on this entire thing. And now I want to pass this on to you all in the chat wall. What do you all think about this Nintendo Direct? What are some of your biggest highlights? What are you most excited for? Let me know what you all think on this. All right, let's see now. Lightning round, go. Scarlet and Violet, at least we got new outfits. Splatoon 3, Vanilla is the only right pick. Fae Farm, more farm games. Penny, this looks like a ton of fun. Peach game. I guess this will be a theater themed. Pikmin 4, gimme it. Mario Kart 8. This game is never gonna leave us, huh? Well, actually, soon it will be over. I think it's either after waves. I think after the 6th wave, or maybe there are 2 more. Okay, I think there's only 8 waves in total, anyways. But as I was saying, let's see. Where was I? Detective Pikachu 2. I waited so long for this. WarioWare. Same with this. Mario RPG. I am the hype. Mario Brothers Wonder. Are we gonna address the elephant in the room? Whoops, no, not that one. Yeah. There we go. Let's see. Nintendo Direct this month is awesome. While Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Super Mario RPG are the biggest highlights, I am excited to play Sonic Superstars, which will be the first game in the series to have 4 co-op players with Sonic and his friends. I am still sad there is no update for Metroid Prime 4. Maybe we will hear the news along with the next-gen Nintendo console in the coming months. Do we have confirmation of that? Nintendo Switch is now about 6 years old, and they need to have a new console ready. We'll see. Anyways, whoa, Nintendo. I'm just getting started with Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So far, I'm in the middle of playing the game, and it's phenomenal. But I need to take it easy with the games in my wallet, because I want to save up for both Super Mario Wonder, Super Mario RPG Remake, and the beautiful Zelda amiibo. The Nintendo Direct is indeed Super Nintendo Direct. The best I've seen so far this year. Better save up for these games, and I do hope it does deliver. Yeah, I know. Same with me. I feel like I gotta save up. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I actually am very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to legit buy the collector's edition of Tears of the Kingdom, but it did cost a freaking arm and a leg. So honestly, I feel like I'm gonna have to try to save up, or like wait until I buy another game. Maybe save up for Super Mario Wonders, or maybe like ask that for Christmas. Who the fridge knows? Let's see. I'm excited for the Super Mario RPG remake. If I had known a few years ago that Super Mario RPG would get a remake revealed in 2023, then I wouldn't have spent $70 on Super Mario RPG ROM hack from eBay. Ugh. Yeah, sorry to hear about that. Let's see what else we have here. Not gonna lie, this is one of the most memorable and best Nintendo Directs I've ever watched. Super Mario RPG, that's very unexpected, but the one game I'm super hyped for is Super Mario Wonder. Finally, a new 2D Mario game after so long to not have new in the game. Seriously, the moment where Elephant Mario is revealed gives me so much joy. Illumination must put him somewhere in Sing 3. Mario's now junk in the trunk. Oh my god. Yo, imagine how Illumination feels. Like, they're watching this like, how are we gonna put this in the sequel? They're gonna demand us to put this in the sequel. How the fridge are we gonna turn Mario into an elephant? All right, I think I'm gonna read one more comment before we cap this all off. This definitely ended up becoming the best Nintendo Direct in a long time. For me, I'm excited for the Batman Arkham Trilogy, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, the Super Mario RPG remake, and Super Mario Wonder. I'm really happy we got so many Mario announcements. Also, with Super Mario Wonder, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually the first time Daisy is playable in a mainline Mario game. That is true. That is actually the case. Now you can legit play as Daisy. Only concern I have is, does she also turn into an elephant too? Because I know the internet might have some ideas if that would be the case. But anyways, that should be it for one hell of an episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Thank you all so much for joining me on this. And I know that it's been a pretty explosive episode, but I know that this is also going to be a very memorable episode. So with that said, if you would like more of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, then don't forget to go and subscribe to the Twitch channel on AniMat Live and on the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel. And don't forget also to go and follow me on whatever podcast service you listen to, like Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, and iTunes. And so with that said, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.